So, yes, this is the UX boot camp. Getting you excited about UX, and that's as good as it gets, folks, so buckle in. We'll get started. So I'll be answering 3 questions. What is user experience design? Why does it matter to me or us? And how does it work? So essentially, it's observing products and designs, seeing how people use those products, and kind of trying to make them better. Is that the best way for people to log in? Is there a better way to design a toothbrush? Are boat docks ready for corgis? All these things are things that we examine.
Corgi ready.
Yes.
But usually when you hear user experience design, it's because the design does not necessarily match with the user experience. Oftentimes we design things with the best intentions, and then we quickly discover that the users don't want to use it that way, and will find workarounds. They'll find alternative. They will get to where they want to go with or without us. And so our goal is design for them. Sometimes the stakes are relatively low, and it's an annoyance. As can be seen here, people get their shoes a little bit wet. There's this nice, beautiful path that the university designed that doesn't get any sort of love, and people move on. Sometimes it can have a major impact. This is the design of the 2000 presidential election ballot in Florida. Anyone that is old enough to remember this, that a lot of people, when trying to use this, had a very bad experience when they tried to vote for a Democrat and instead voted for the Reform Party. For a small user group, this was great, particularly Pat Buchanan, but for other people, their intentions to use it the way that they wanted to was miffed by the design itself.
Can I interrupt just a second? Let's see. So in the chat room, Edie has reported that people online might not be seeing the slides, that it sounds like they're just seeing the room. And, oh, Emily says they can see the slides. You can see the slides. Okay. Well, Edie, I'm not sure why you're not seeing the slides. We're seeing them in the room and some other folks online. Let's see, Patrick says there is a little slider in the lower left. They need to adjust the blue-white line on the bottom left, says Christy. So, Edie, do you see that? Okay, thank you, Patrick. I think Patrick in the chat just solved
Her user experience.
Yeah, it was a UX problem with blue jeans. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Bad UX, says Keith. Yeah.
Good example.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
Live fire. So my definition of user experience design is to help the user achieve their desired outcome in a way that's best for them. So let's look at some real-world examples. Tell some stories, if you will. These achieve the same outcome. If you want ketchup, these are both great vesicles for ketchup. However, if anyone has used the one on the left, unless your idea of a great ketchup experience is a swimming pool of ketchup, then it may not be the best for the users. The one on the right has been designed specifically for them. And if I were giving you the choice, you probably would choose the one on the left.
Except the one on the left made a great,
Right.
classic,
Yeah.
Commercial with anticipation back in the day.
And the one on the right can make obnoxious sounds when
Yes.
it is low on ketchup.
But can add to the comedy of the party.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, comic
Especially if
relief.
there's middle-aged kids around.
Still room for improvement, iteration. Still many, many opportunities to improve. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good point that,
Although you must turn that one right side up first, otherwise if you do that, you'll get
right.
That's true.
ketchup
Yeah.
all over the place.
It is a good attempt at user experience, though.
But yeah, I mean, and this is a choice that we have to face as designers. As, do we go with what's beautiful, what's practical, and is there a way to merge the two? As of right now, you can see these are not merged. go. Next slide, maybe. Here we go. Go into the next slide of my screen. There it is. All right. So sometimes user experience design is constantly keeping track. If anyone has taken Danielle's How to Give a Presentation, there is a very large chunk of it devoted to mental maps. And that's something that we try to address constantly in user experience design. This is a street corner in San Francisco. If we were to look on the left of where it was a little bit ago and said, can I park here at 2 in the afternoon? My goal is to park and not get a ticket for the hour I want to spend inside the shop next to me. It's very hard on the left. You can figure it out, but by that time, I personally would keep walking or keep driving. The one on the right, you could probably answer that question instantaneously. And it's same information, just presented in a way that is user first, with very little cost to the people that are producing it. In fact, one side compared to 4 signs, you can see that there's already a savings for the people that are producing this. Sometimes, there we go.
I just didn't understand the other side.
Oh.
Well, a couple of them said free. Were
Sure.
other ones not free?
Yes, so there's, at the very top, all those frees is that it's, so if you, going from top to bottom, it's 1 hour parking from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., which means you're going to have to pay for that time. But every time before 8 a.m. and every time after 6 p.m., it's free on most days, except for 2 distinct times that you can't park there at all. So it's 1 hour parking, free parking most of the time, and can't park at
So 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., where it doesn't say free underneath, you can park there, but you have to pay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So once again, there's still some work that could be done.
Like, am I seeing things? Or does this just be
No,
a free
absolutely.
one? Okay.
Maybe it'd be useful to have like a
It's better.
money sign on there to give you an indication between free and
Yeah. Okay.
Just put Alexa there. Alexa, when can I park here?
right. There you go. No interface is always the best interface.
Okay.
As they
Sorry.
say. Oh no.
Yeah.
That's this is all about design. So here are 2 designs that have worked for a very, very long time. They achieved the goal of making sure people don't get hit and people know when to cross the street. But like a lot of things, the user changed and they had different goals. They had different intentions. Not only did they want to be able to cross the street, know when to cross the street, they wanted to do it while still being able to do other activities, still look at their phone. So looking up is no longer a thing. And it's easy for us to say, well, the user should just look up. But,
We're down.
well, if there is a design that can satisfy that, if we can give the user their desired outcome in a way that works best for them, why not? Is it really that much more work for us to have this on the ground than up in the air? And it makes enjoyable experience, and it cuts down on all the things that we don't want, the negative externalities. And it's cool if you ask me. I think it's pretty neat. But user behavior can be changed. And sometimes people have multiple goals. And sometimes the design is nudging them to their desired outcome. How many people have a reusable bag at their house, in their car? And how many people have a 100% success rate of getting that into the store every single time that you want it? I know I do not. So we also don't want to use plastic bags. As a society, we know the environmental impacts of plastic bags, but sometimes they're a necessity, especially when we forget our reusable bag. So what a lot of cities around the world have started to do is introduce a 5-cent tax on every plastic bag used. This is a very small amount when you think about it. If you use 10 bags at the grocery store, that costs you 50 cents. 10 bags of groceries could easily be over $100. That's 0.5% of your total cost of your bill. But yet, it had huge impacts. In the city of London, the year after it was introduced, the 7 largest grocery store chains saw a 83 reduction in plastic bag uses in the first year. DC had similar numbers, but what's interesting about them is that when they went to clean up the Potomac, the year after that the bag tax was introduced there, they saw a 72% reduction in the plastic bag trash that was found in the Potomac the following year. These are real-world impacts. So how does this impact us at RTI? Well, the thing about web design is that we create the entire user experience. What they see, what they experience, every interaction, everything here is building that user experience. And unlike the real world where we have to confine ourselves to what's around and what's already there, we get to start from scratch and help the user achieve their desired outcome in a way that's best for them. So that's cool. That was the why, or what. Let's talk about the why. Why does it matter to us? Why does it matter to me? I'm not a user experience designer. This is all interesting, but what does it really mean to me? Well, user experience design and incorporating it into your product is cheaper than the alternative. It helps make a great first impression, and it can improve the human condition. I don't know if anyone caught that last one. It's a big one. So here's a quote by someone that's a doctor and not me that pretty much reiterated my first point. So let's talk about it's cheaper than the alternative. And it will come up any second now, as soon as it connects. There we go. All right. So the IEEE is a technology trade organization that does all sorts of great studies about technology. They found that a problem found after a website goes live is 100 times more expensive to fix than those caught before production started. They also, through the research, found that it's so endemic that problems are found after they've already gone live, that 50% of developers' time is spent fixing problems that were preventable in the first place. That's big, expensive numbers, not for the user, but for us and for your clients. It also makes a good first impression, and first impressions matter. The average user has 10 seconds. Oh, this animation would be a lot cooler if it worked in real time. You have 10 seconds to grab a user. The majority of users will abandon your site within 10 seconds if they don't like what they see. And 75% of users determine the credibility of a website based on the visual design alone. Of people that decide to leave, 79% of them, once they leave, will find another site and never come back to your site. That 10 seconds is the difference between them staying and abandoning. The good news is that with the incorporation of UX, you can get big returns on investment. Websites that incorporate user experience design as the forefront of their work saw a 90% improvement in web traffic. They saw a 112% improvement in user success rate of tasks. And for the targeted feature that they were trying to push the users to, they saw a 174% increase in usage of that feature compared to websites that incorporated no UX at all. So let's talk about how to improve the human condition. We are a nonprofit. These are two nonprofits themselves. This is UNICEF Australia and Australia Red Cross. UNICEF has put a lot of effort into UX. The Red Cross, not as much. These are the same sort of organizations asking for the same sort of things and focusing on the same sort of thing, the humanity crisis in Syria. But the way they went about it was two very different approaches, and it shows. A user experience design firm did a comparative analysis of these two websites. And what they found was that of their users that went through each of these websites independently, 79% of the users for the UNICEF site found what they were looking for, compared to only 41% at the Red Cross. This is also true for the ability to complete tasks. 63% on the UNICEF site, only 45% the Red Cross. And these tasks are important, like finding if this website's credible, finding out how to donate, being able to donate on the website. These are not small tasks, but one side was able to do it above 50%, the other side wasn't. And this made an impact on the donations they got as well. The user experience design site saw 10% more donations from first-time donors than the Red Cross. And those people that had decided to give money before they even got on the site, almost 10% of those gave more money than they were originally intended, compared to no one on the Red Cross site. So for us, we go by different metrics, but those first two ones, finding the information and completing tasks, are something that is meaningful for all of us. This is the Saki Sexual Assault Toolkit Initiative and the website that goes along with it. This is a myriad of different things. This is for law enforcement and advocates of people who have suffered sexual assault. As you can see, there are large categories. It spans everything from engaging the victims to evidence tracking to how to bring it to court and how to do research. If we can help even 1% more of law enforcement find how to find the information they're looking for, get the information to those victim advocates to even start this process, that is improving the human condition 100%. So, we know the what, we know the why. Talk about how it works. There are a whole bunch of different ways and a whole bunch of different companies of the way to go about creating good user experience design. Top left is Adobe's. Bottom left is Stanford's. The one on the right is one I found on a random website on the internet. It's just, there's a lot out there. But because I'm talking, and this is about me, we're going to be using what I do, which is the 4 steps: understanding the users, defining the user experience, designing the user experience, and ensuring that it works. So let's go by step. Understanding the users. So there are 3 methods that I use for this, and these can be done by anyone. And this is the one that you can do for yourself, and if we have time, will be what we do at the end. Broken down into user research, user interviews, and persona creations. Usually when people think of user research, they think demographics. If you're trying to make a website for the average American, she is a woman, 52 years old, white, not Hispanic, married, went to college but didn't graduate, and lives in the city. Picture here fits all those. That's Cindy Crawford. If you made a website for Cindy Crawford, you probably are not making it for the average American, but by demographics, you are. As a side note, I was told earlier today that today is her birthday, and she is now 53, which ruins this slide, but I'm going to stick it in anyway. Yeah, right? Anyway, so what do we look for in user research? Well, this goes to understanding what problems they're trying to solve, not what we can provide for them, but what problems are they individually trying to solve? What challenges are unique to this user group? Do they have a disability? Is there financial strain, time restraints, emotional? There's a lot of things that are very unique to every group that we don't see. What is the state of mind when people are trying to solve the problem? A father trying to figure out why his daughter is coughing is very different from the doctor that's looking for the same information. There is 2 different mindsets. They're looking for 2 different types of information, and they will find 2 different types of answers. That makes a big decision point of how things are designed. And then, what's their ideal outcomes? You know, just asking people, really, you can get a lot of knowledge as to what they're trying to achieve. After that's said and done, I and you can create personas. These are essentially summaries of the information that we gathered. They can be high fidelity, low fidelity. They can have a lot of information. They can have very little information. But creating these achieves 3 different goals. It acts as a reference point. We all have our own idea of who the users are. We all come from our own worldview. And having a common understanding of who your users are that everyone can point to can make meetings go significantly faster. It can get the conversation speaking with the same language. It also helps you account for hidden biases. 1 in 4 Americans, according to the CDC, have some sort of disability. And oftentimes, when we are designing, when we are creating, when we are thinking about the users, we tend to put ourselves in that, in the user spot, and we can tend to forget the unique experience and the hidden bias we have in ourselves. Having those sort of things on your personas can help you remember that, oh yeah, I need to add that extra little bit. It can also help you act as a referee. I've been in many meetings that people have come with amazing ideas of how to address a problem. And what really helps is being able to argue it of, we have this persona, we have the user that we know. Which idea, if they're both good, is a better one that will solve it for this specific user? And that can really help you as a group kind of understand they're both good, but which one can give it the little extra edge. So let's talk about defining the user experience. For this, I use a combination of use case and scenarios, user journeys and storyboards, and user task flows. Here's an example of a use case. It's essentially doing laundry, and it talks about in a paragraph form who does it, which would be your persona, and just the basic 1 paragraph, what do they do? This can really start early on thinking about what you're trying to accomplish and what in your user's mind, how it fits into their life. The next one is user journeys and storyboards. For better drawers than I, it's a pictographic representation of all the different steps. This gives you a better understanding, gives people more of a feel of how it is, makes it a little bit more real, and gives you a good conversation point of switching different steps around and sharing it with clients. The last one is the user flow. And this is the most detailed, most complex, and this is literally walking through every step, every click, every screen, every interaction that the user will face. How these are useful? It can make it easier for you to align with user expectations. If you see something this complex, you can quickly identify potential spaces to make it easier, to make that path a little bit smoother, to see, is this really achieving the user goal? It also prevents mission creep. If you're talking to a client or you're talking to other members and they want to add on new tasks and new things that users can do, you can quickly refer back to these and say, does this align with the use case? Does this align with our user flow that we want them to achieve? Is that really going to help? Third, designing the user experience. This is going back to finding problems before they even start. 3 methods that I use is card sorting, mockups, and prototyping. Card sorting is incredibly low fidelity, easy to do, and you can do it yourself. It is literally taking note cards, writing everything that's going to be, every page on your website, every idea that you have, giving them to someone and telling them, arrange these in an order that makes sense. And if you watch a few people do this, you will quickly discover how your navigation will look, how people understand your website. And when you talk to, hopefully the web design team, but if you go to an outside vendor, you can quickly communicate with them what things make logical sense and should be grouped together. The next is low fidelity and high fidelity mockup. This is incredibly low fidelity. This is me drawing poorly a design that gets turned into a slightly higher fidelity mockup. The next step to this is prototyping, which is adding interactions. These are very vital because it allows for rapid iteration. You can present this to your team, to your clients, and you can quickly decide that you can scrap the whole things and change it with almost little cost. This piece of paper is very easy to throw away and completely redraw. It costs next to nothing compared to if someone is building an entire website for you and then you realize, oh, no, this is not how we want to do it. It's also a low-cost problem solver. If you can see what the pages are going to look like and you can see how they're going to interact and how people are going to use them, you will quickly find where the things don't make sense to you. The last one is ensuring that it worked. This comes from log analysis, user survey, and usability testing. Log analysis is looking at what people did. Everything up into this step is a hypothesis. That persona is just an idea of who your user are. That use case is just a thought of how they're going to use. The prototype is your best guess of how that user flow is going to work, how people are actually using it. But if you don't know what they're really doing, you're just going to hope that what you did was right, and that's it. The next one is user surveys. This is a good way to get a large chunk of qualitative and quantitative data over a large span of people to give you an understanding beyond what they do, how they experienced it. Did they like it? Is it useful to them? And best, the gold standard, and once again, this is something you can do on your own, it's usability studies. Get your website or get whatever you have, put it in front of people, and just ask them, how do you think this works? If you click this button, what do you expect it to do? If it is a website that already exists, have them go through those things. It takes 5 users to determine 70% of your problems with your website. And that can be done at any stage, and that can have a real impact before, and if you can do this early, before it actually goes in production. And that's really something that's literally just taking your laptop, going to anyone in this building, and asking them to do it. There's a higher level professional way of doing it, which can kind of grade people over time, but literally just getting your product in front of people or getting your ideas in front of people, that low fidelity mockup, can make a difference. So what does it do? It lets us know if it worked as designed. And it can quickly identify problems and where you can, and then the other thing it can do is let you know what's next. If you talk to those users and you see a problem that keeps coming up with them, there's always room for next iteration. And there's always the next idea that you could be working on and getting ready for the next project. So I don't know if we have time, but we could run through a quick exercise of identifying our users. Do we want to go to questions, or we want to do a quick exercise?
Let's do a quick exercise.
Okay, so
We're users, let's have it.
Yeah, right? So your client comes to you, the NIH comes to you and says, hey, we are trying to deter 13 to 19-year-olds from smoking. Well, from vaping. They know they shouldn't smoke, but they don't understand the consequences of vaping. What we're thinking of doing is having a website they could go to, see themselves load up a picture of them, see how they are today, see how they'll look in 50 years from where they are today if they pick up vaping or other smokeless tobaccos, and then they can put that on Instagram and share with all their friends. Now, let's go through this and just go to that first stage of knowing about our users. How many people, how many people internally, we don't have to take a poll, think that this is a great way to encourage young people not to vape? Very innovative, really real, very great visuals, and I may be leading you on because we're about to go through it. So let's talk about what we envision our users are. What characteristics, besides demographics, would be the type of users that would come to a website about vaping?
Is it a
has,
website or is it a Instagram account?
it is a mobile app that will take you to Instagram.
Okay.
Does anyone have any idea of the type of people, what type of users would come to this website?
How do they get there?
They could go through a link, an ad, any sort of thing that just kind of gets them to this webpage.
It's an anti-vaping webpage.
Yes. In fact, let's ask these questions. Right.
And it's based on what we're seeing here in this picture, or?
Yeah.
I don't know, what made them click? Where are they coming from?
Well, they just want to find information about vaping. They want to find information about for themselves, and if they want to talk to someone they love about vaping.
So you think they would Google it?
They might Google it, but yeah, Google, find it through other means. But like, what problem? Well, like, let's start with this. What problems are the people that are looking to for information about vaping trying to solve?
Probably trying to select a vaping device.
Could be,
Mhm.
but they're coming to the anti-vaping smoking site.
Well, they could. Kids want to vape, so they're probably like parents who don't want their kids to vape, or
There you go.
teachers or something that see it in school.
Yeah,
Or it's
Who would be people not in the age demographic? that's
Yeah,
imagined.
who would probably, I mean, unless you're my mother, not on Instagram.
right.
or a
Wait.
friend who, boyfriend, girlfriend, something that doesn't want their partner to vape,
There you go.
who wants
That's a good
to
one.
Yeah.
show
So,
them.
so
that.
generally,
a
there's
friend.
it's someone who is quote health conscious, probably has a subtle anti-vaping bias to begin with,
Yeah.
and they're finding their way somehow to this website that is about anti-vaping.
From the picture, it looked like they were trying to reach someone who might be vaping because they were showing somebody with
Yeah, I
like
don't-
wrinkled skin. It looked like, like a, I guess, girl in her late teens, early 20s.
Yes.
What's the question?
Sorry. So what we're trying to say is we're trying to evaluate if the idea that they have fits the type of the goal that we're trying to solve.
What is the
Problem
goal?
with the goal is to prevent teens from picking up smoking or helping their friends stop vaping. Prevent them from vaping or prevent their friends from vaping.
So the people who actually go to the site are not people who would,
They
you're
could
not
be.
your
If-
user audience. that
If
you're trying to
they're
reach.
worried about the consequences of vaping themselves, they heard it's bad, but they don't really know the full consequences of it.
So your hope is that younger people will come to the site.
That is their goal. That's the client's goal, is to get young people on the site or get their friends on the site to, and they feel like the best way to do that is to engage them on social media, get them, they're the selfie generation, get them a selfie, get them some interaction that they can see how bad they'll look if they continue to do this or their friends do this, and then, become viral marketing and spread it around.
So the client assumes that the demographic would come to this site. There would be some edgy, techie thing that they can put their selfie in,
Yes.
and it would show them what they would look like what their friend would look like if they vaped for 50 years, and then they can share it on social media. Because the client is assuming that all of this demographic loves to take selfies of themselves and wants to share things on
You should do a
Instagram.
filter. What
Yeah.
Could do it. It's good
You
filter.
know?
Yeah,
Oh.
PR filter. Also, they're assuming that someone's going to go to their website and then go to social media, but I would assume that it would sort of be the other way around. They would find it on social
Yeah,
media.
Link in bio or something.
Yeah, or
promoted
like
posts.
they would be scrolling their Insta feed and see it, and then maybe click on a hashtag or like learn more,
Mhm.
and then go to that site. So it kind of seems like they're assuming something that about how the user's getting to them that maybe isn't true.
Absolutely.
The
No,
only
that's
reason they never click on it is because it was an accident. I mean, if they wanted to, the only reason they do this is I wanted to do a filter on me,
Mhm.
and then if that actually took them to the website instead of creating a filter on them.
I would be
That's the only
wondering
way I
like,
can think of that.
who made this filter. Like if I was a tween and I was like, ugh, a vaping ad, like who made this? Get over yourself. And there's a click
Yeah.
on their site just right there.
So these are all good. You guys are already finding a lot of the flaws that I identified with this. Is that are they starting here? Why would they ever start on this website? Are they coming from Instagram? Why would they upload a selfie of themselves if they're a little worried? And then, some other things about them. If you're looking for health information, do you really want to share that health information with your entire social media account? Let's talk about teens. Are they do they have good self-conscious? Do they want to have a picture of them on the internet looking horrible?
No,
In
I
50
mean,
years?
they want to have filters that make them look more beautiful rather than ugly.
And as you said, if they're going from here to social media, how are they getting the information? If they get to social media, I know as soon as I jump from a website onto Twitter or Snapchat or anything, I'm gone and will never think about that website again. So if we're looking at this from a user experience of what their goal is to find health information, what's their state of mind when they get there? I'm looking for health information and I'm self-conscious. This is a private thing for me.
Right.
I don't want to do this. And these are things you can find out by just interviewing people. Saying,
A teenager's never wanted health information, ever.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Mm-mm.
There's never been a teen that looked for health information, ever. They don't care.
Unless they
Interesting.
were in
Do they?
Yeah.
Parents look for health information.
That's right.
So maybe that's,
right. It's true. I was
Has a
thinking-
kid ever looked for health information?
My niece started vaping, and I would send her this. Like, I would do this and send it to her, but no way would she be.
Plus, they don't think past a week. So they'd be like, well, I'm not going to be vaping for years. What are you talking about? I vape now, but I won't vape then. I
So
won't
my
vape
question would be if a client comes to us with this idea,
Mhm.
and we're talking about all the ways that there's problems with this idea, how do you use user experience
sure.
to push back on that?
Absolutely. The best way to do that is people, if they're not respecting your authority, they'll respect the user's authority, and that's where that first interviewing the user comes in. People are very generous with their time. If you ask, a lot of people will volunteer to just talk to you for 5-10 minutes. If you can record it and have a quote, if you can't record it, just having a quote from a user, that is a very powerful thing to a client. Because they have their opinions and they think you have your opinions, but if you can come to them with clear evidence that that's not what the user wants, is in the state of mind for, that is extremely powerful. I have won many a good argument with just saying, well, you don't have to believe me. Look at this person, either interviewing it, or if you get to that stage of usability testing, and on another website, you don't even have to have your website, a similar website, and just asking them those questions. Would you use this website? How would you use this website? And they say, I would never. Why would I ever upload a selfie of myself to some random website on the internet and connect it to my Instagram when I don't even know the first thing about this site? Also, it makes me look awful. That's, that's a powerful thing to say.
Am I spilling the beans? Because this was an actual project that I believe
Oh, yeah.
NIH, some client had this great idea for this techie, edgy thing to get these young people, because they're such social media addicts or something, and they conceived of this. And I think through a process, you and or someone else sort of figured out the people who would come to that site absolutely do not want to post an image of themselves looking bad. And they're actually kind of ashamed of what's going on with their addiction.
Yeah. So actually, it's a little bit worse than that, because this was my pitch to them. They were just asking for pitches from different people, and they provided a large stack of user interviews that they had. And I was like, no, I know users. I know what the youth loves. And I pitched this to them. And they thought it was great. They were really excited about this whole thing until the next woman to go up and give her presentation about what her design was. And it was very different than this. It was focused on privacy, anonymity. It was very what are the things you need to know right now? If you're concerned about your friends, what are the messages that are the best way to connect to them and get them to stop? Do you have someone you know? Here is a quick printout with talking points. And that, because she read the user interviews, she saw what their emotional state was, why they would ever come to this website, what they were trying to find, and how the best way to connect with them. And that was the correct approach. And this was one of my first UX, and that's what I've always remembered and what I always encourage. learning about your users. I mean, Renee did a great thing on our MECFS early work. She went to the forum of the MECFS patients, and she understood in our first meeting what language they use. How do they describe themselves? What words do they use when talking to each other about who they are and what they represent?
What are they?
MECFS is chronic fatigue syndrome,
Okay.
and the more scientific name that I can never remember as the
Myoencephalitis.
Myoencephalitis.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's why I always refer to MECFS.
Mhm.
But those sort of things, you don't even, I mean, and if you, user interviews are the gold standard, but the next best thing is going to where they are, understanding who they are, what language they use, because if you can speak their language, that 10-second rule, if they understand that you're speaking their language and you know and understand what they're saying, that means a lot. And that can be the difference between them going to another site that may, Jewel is spending a lot of money. When I was doing research and finding pictures for this, my feeds are full of Jewel ads in 100 different ways to appeal to young people. They are speaking to them. If we're trying to speak to them as well, we need to talk to them.
So I have another question.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the presentation, you talked about how user experience, it's cheaper to do it right than to do it wrong.
Yes.
What I face in a lot of projects is there's not enough money to do anything really. But also there's a pressure to get things done really fast. And we're gonna get this done and then we'll address these problems later on. And sometimes the project funding runs out or the interest fades or whatnot. So I'm wondering, how do you do good user experience given all those constraints?
Absolutely. We struggle with that.
Yeah, it's
Here,
hard.
I mean, all of us do. I mean,
It's the business context here that unless in a proposal somehow there is a cell that bakes in a budget and possibly a timeline for these, like understanding, defining, designing,
Yeah.
and ideally understanding, did it work? If it's not in the proposal that's in the contract, then there's not budget for it, and it's a real challenge at
Do
RTI.
you know about the digital project booklet?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That
So
has-
that's in there.
has a
That's
lot of.
got it baked in it.
When I send out the slide deck, I will
Yeah.
connect to that as well. A lot of the things that I kind of walked through can be done cheap for free, and it only takes a few hours of your time to do them.
Mhm.
And stabbing in the dark with a little bit of knowledge is better than just doing nothing. And it's hard to convince people like the utility of UX when we have this much money for development and we have this much time, and neither of those are big or extensive.
Mhm.
It's hard. The earlier you can do it, like user interviews are free. Besides an hour of your time to go and do, those are free. Usability tests on websites that you kind of want to mimic and do similar things, there's also, it's literally walking around, and just having that little bit of insight can kind of help steer you in the right direction and give you at least a something to fight for. You're not, every dollar spent, I could send you statistics that for every $1 is $10 was 100, but they're not going to care.
Right.
The way you do it is you show that it works the first time, free, and then you come back again and say, hey, remember when I did that, remember when we did those user interviews, remember when we did that usability study, and remember when it fixed this problem, and this problem?
Mhm.
How much would it have cost us if those went all the way to productions, we found them once we do it? Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to start with 0,
Uh-huh.
gain 10%, use that 10% to fight for another 30. That's
How much do you deal with the IRB in your user experience surveys, focus groups?
when it
testing?
comes to the IRB, it does really matter when it comes to it. A lot of the federal funding now kind of understands the need for usability testing design. It does need, some of these things would probably need IRB approval. A lot of this can be done It is a conversation that you would need to have with the IRB. Unfortunately, some things like the guerrilla testing can be done without much context.
And by that you mean like talking to coworkers, other people in the building,
Right.
guerrilla testing.
Sorry,
So that's some of the like
Right.
Guerrilla testing.
yeah, easy, quick and dirty kind of testing just with peers or a neighbor or a friend or whatever.
Yeah.
But when we're getting into the actual demographic,
It can be a little bit
it can
harder.
spill into the IRB.
Yeah, but usually, there's a lot of safeguards. A lot of this can be done anonymously. I mean, I've done a lot of usability tests. You can just say user 1, user 2, user 3, user 4, and just don't even track any sort of identifier data besides the things you collect. They clicked on this. User 1
Right.
said this. There is a ability to really distance any sort of real data because you don't need to know Jane Smith. In fact, you don't even need. It's of course always best to use your user group, but no matter what user you use, as long as you get a few of them, they will find a lot of the things without having any knowledge about specifics to what you're doing. They will find things that will have improvements for you.
In my experience with the IRB, it's pretty easy to get a non-research determination, especially if it is not meant to contribute to generalizable knowledge. So a lot of
I do
times,
love IRB works, that's why
yeah,
I was wondering, that would have been the answer I would have expected, actually.
yeah.
Have you worked with the IRB? Have you established basically enough experience where you can go right back in and say, I'm doing one of these things, that you have your templates, so you can do it very quickly and inexpensively.
It usually you need to plan ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
A lot of times too, as I say, if you have a client that's asking for something specific, there's been a lot of times when I have to say, what I hear is that you think you need new tires, and I can give you new tires. I can also tell you that you'll be back in a month because it's actually your suspension that's broken. You know what I mean? Like you can say in a real world model, like
Yeah.
the client 9 times out of 10 doesn't really know what they need. They can make it up, like, because they haven't done the testing to
And they
see
think
what
they know
will
what
be
they need.
effective in their
Yeah.
space.
Mhm.
But
There's-
that just takes a minute to say, I hear what
Yeah.
I hear what you're asking for, and I can give you that. But
Yeah.
I actually also see that
Mhm.
there's a deeper problem with that plan
Yeah.
You know?
I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes up a lot in the digital space.
all the time.
We are
especially
just
with
about out of
people.
time. I'm sorry to cut
That's
this
fine.
short. Anyone online? Could I ask? Is there any quick question from anyone online? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Stephen can share the slides. Someone has already asked for that, and also this presentation has been recorded, so it's going to be up on our Digital Impact Gathering website soon, once Cameron makes it for us. Thank you. So I think we need to wrap, but I want to thank Stephen very much for sharing this information. I think it's really valuable. I think organizationally, we really do need boilerplate that succinctly sells some of how this saves money in the long run. Probably using scientific studies because that's what our people respond to. And I think P3, the proposal managers should know about this for any digital product.
I wonder if we need training to actually, from an account management standpoint, talking to the client through that whole conversation.
Well,
because I know there's probably a boilerplate need, obviously.
But we're so siloed. It's a trick. Some people might know about the boilerplate, some people won't know about it, right? So we have this really fractured, siloed, distributed business model at RTI. So there really are business context challenges.
It's a hard conversation to push back on a client, especially in the proposal stage, when you know what they're asking for is not what they're really asking for.
And it's not in the budget. And it's also really hard. I find myself getting pulled in on digital projects where they're halfway through the project and there are all these issues and they're like, hey, can you help? And I'm like, yeah, here's what I think we need to do, and they're like, oh, what?
Yeah.
So it's so important to get it in at the proposal stage.
Ideally.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Well, innovation grant, here we come.
That's actually really good.
Yeah. What used to be called IR&D, there would be a great opportunity, I think, for something like this in what's it called, like, they're called something else now. It's like concept notes. IR&D, I think, has
There was
gone
just a
away.
note
and it's
that
now
went out, or
it's concept notes.
Calling for them. They're looking
Well, we
for-
should-
Yeah, there was a,
Some
They're
folks-
the next new ones do.
Yeah.
Email me, and I can
S11@rti.org.
Yeah.
He'll be happy to help
Slevin.
keep you. Yeah,
Slevin.
Mhm.
11.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
you.
all.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Stephen.